Spitfire held Frostburn's head in her arms, crying softly. Next to her, the limp body of her colt, Blizzard, lay motionless. The floor vibrated from another explosion, but Spitfire didn't notice. She looked down at the scorched face of her filly. It was unrecognizable to any eye but a mother's. But Spitfire knew that somewhere deep down her child was smiling. She was at peace with this horrible world, and Spitfire was left to pick up the pieces. I should be angry, she realized, but I'm not. It wasn't the Shadow Bolts, or the Rebels, or Nightmare Moon that caused this. It was all of us, every pony. If I hate anyone, it should be myself for not trying to stop it sooner. The ceiling groaned ominously, the apartment building warning of its imminent collapse. Spitfire looked around her home, wondering what she should do now. What was there left to live for? Why not just lay down her burdens here, and now? A voice floated to her over the sound of creaking metal, and she looked towards her shattered window. Her friend Soarin flew outside, waving at her frantically. For him, she thought, and her ponies like him, I have to stop this chaos. Or, at least, I have to try. The captain sat against the wall of her cell, listening to the din above. She knew her lieutenant was already dead, and her only solace was that she would soon be next. Sure enough, the door to her cell was flung open a moment later, an ominous figure standing illuminated by a torch outside. My turn, then? She questioned. Take me already. I have nothing left to live for. Wordlessly, the figure approached and opened a black bag. From the same that had hidden the face of the late Spitfire. The captain didn't resist as the bag was pulled over her face, obscuring her vision. She didn't struggle as her hooves and wings were bound behind her, nor as she was dragged painfully across the floor and out of the cell. She could hear the town above clamoring, the walls and floor vibrating around her. She was left to her thoughts as the noise grew slowly louder, her guard remaining silent the whole way. She couldn't even care that she wasn't being beaten this time, and it was only by concentrating that she could even feel the pain in her knees as they were scraped along the rough stone. As she heard the town above her grow closer, she was jerked sideways and painfully dragged around a corner, her flank bumping sharply into a doorframe. She didn't wince at the pain, but she was surprised when she was dropped to the ground. The rope around her neck was pulled painfully backwards in a few seconds before it was released, and to her further surprise, a hoof yanked it off her face. Her vision became swimming into focus, and she looked up at her guard. You? They sent you to drag me up? Of course not, you fool, spit Rainbow Dash, tossing the hood to the side. I came down here on my own. Rainbow Dash turned and closed the door behind the captain, locking them inside the small storehouse. Rainbow Dash sat on some empty boxes, about the only thing left in the room. And the captain turned a suspicious eye towards her, her depression temporarily forgotten in the face of this mystery. Why? Because what Rarity is doing is wrong. Twilight and I tried to convince her to spare you and Spitfire, but she wouldn't listen. Rainbow Dash hovered behind the captain, fumbling with one hoof, to undo the bindings holding her. I brought a change of clothes with me. If you put them on, you can walk out of town unchallenged. Even the gate guards are in the town center. The captain felt her hooves slip free, and she brought them back in front of her, rubbing them as the circulation returned. And what if I don't want to go? What if I'd rather die here, with my friend that you murdered? The venom in the captain's voice could have killed any number of small, furry creatures, But Rainbow Dash was unscathed. You don't. Look, I'm not from this place the same way that you are. I've seen things that had to be done to survive. I came from a place where there was still sun and everything was better. The captain saw a tear in Dash's eye, but she had no sympathies to share for her. I've always thought that we had problems, but being here, seeing this, it all seems so trivial now. Heh, I don't think I'd even want to fly in the Wonderbolts anymore, not knowing that my friends were in this place. The captain continued to glare at the pony above her, waiting her next words. Catching herself dreaming of her lost home, Dash shook her head and returned to the conversation. Look, the point is that there's got to be something left to live for. If I can't get through it as an outsider, then you certainly can. When I first got here, I saw that what Pinky and Fluttershy had done. I almost lost it. I almost gave up and quit right there. But Twilight never stopped, and looking at her, knowing that there was at least one thing left here to be loyal to, I guess I couldn't. Heh, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. You're just some Shadowbolt. Just like Spitfire was just some Shadowbolt. The captain's words were reflexive, her hatred returning to her as Dash finished. Startled, Dash looked down at her. I'm sorry. I really am. The captain could see that she was telling the truth, the moisture in her eyes glinting in the torchlight. I thought I wanted to fight for you guys, when I first learned about what happened to Ponyville. But now, I'm just tired. I just want you to go home, but I don't want to see any pony die to get me there. If you take it one day at a time, I'm sure you'll find something else to live for. So go, while you still can. The captain sighed, but she had already realized that Dash was right. She had something else to live for, something that she could not do, or that she could do now that she was free again. As realization spread through her, she turned a grateful eye towards her rescuer. There's something else that I must do first, she thought. Rainbow Dash, there's something I need you to see before I go. The reason I tailed Spike here in the first place, instead of just telling the Royal Guard. Dash's ears peaked with interest. Please, Dash, take off my mask. Rainbow Dash hesitated but stood. The captain could see in her eyes that she wanted desperately to know, and now she was being offered the chance on a silver platter. Tentatively, she reached out her good hoof and grasped the hem of the mask, pulling it and the goggles off the mare's head slowly. The goggles clattered to the floor as the mask fell from Dash's limp hoof. How? But... Oh, Celestia, no! With the strength to her hooves restored by the lengthy conversation, the captain leapt up. Because of her shock, Rainbow Dash didn't have time to react as the captain turned and bucked her across the room, soaring into the pile of heavy boxes. For a moment, they creaked ominously, but then gravity took over, and they came crashing down on her. The captain waited for a minute to ensure that nothing was moving beneath the pile, and then turned back to the door. She was right. I do have something left to live for. Something that I can gain with my new freedom. The captain's mouth smiled crookedly. Justice for Spitfire. Soarin stumbled out of the crowd, leaning against a nearby building for support. His other hoof was tightly clenched, pulling closely to his chest. Feeling more than seeing his way down the street, he tried to make his way home. His eyes were wide open, but gazed unseeingly ahead. All he could imagine was the scene of Spitfire's fall. When he opened his eyes, he saw it over and over. When he closed them, he could hear the crowds as they clawed for her. He stumbled, not even bothering to catch himself as he fell to the dusty ground. For what seemed like forever, he just let himself lie there, his shattered mind trying to make sense of what he had done. "I just want to die," was the thought that was subtle at first. Just another voice in the sea of self-accusation. But it rang out again and again until the mental chant became a crescendo. "I just want to die. I deserve to die. What difference does it make if I ever move from this spot? Everything I believed was wrong. Everything I fought for. Oh, Celestia. I just want to die." In some part of his mind, he registered that his head hurt. It wasn't until he reflexively wiped his brow that he knew he was bleeding from the fall. He crawled up to a sitting position, looking at the blood with one hoof, bringing the other around in front of him. He uncurled it to reveal Spitfire's shattered goggles that had fallen from the stage. Looking down at the blood-stained hooves and the broken remnants of his mistakes, he finally broke down and began to weep. Big Mac walked down the tunnel, the two guard unicorns behind him. The crowd was getting restless, but Big Mac never, under any circumstances, hurried. He calmly plodded along, knowing that he would reach the dungeons and fetch the next prisoner in due time. A noise to his right made him turn his head absent-mindedly, and he had no time to duck as Rainbow Dash came bursting out of a door. The two ponies collided with the other wall, but Rainbow Dash was on her feet again almost instantly. "Big Mac, get up! The prisoner has escaped!" What?" "Rainbow Dash, what are you doing down here?" The deep voice rumbling along with the patience of the mountain that they lived under, his face unperturbed. "It doesn't matter. Big Mac, we need to close off the city and warn Rarity. She could be in danger." Rainbow Dash was breathing violently, her eyes searching side to side frantically. "She knocked me out and got a head start. Is Rarity still outside?" "Yup, but hey, Rainbow Dash, no pony could have gotten out of that sail on their own. You didn't—" "No time, Big Mac. I'll go on ahead and warn Rarity. You get the guard organized. The safety of New Ponyville's leader is at stake." Not waiting for an answer, Rainbow Dash flew up the tunnel, weaving around the turn until she emerged into the main chamber, entering from a side tunnel just behind the guardhouse. She gained some altitude, her eyes quickly spying the stage around which every pony was gathered. Rainbow Dash began soaring towards it, her mistakes quickening her wings forward. Rarity turned her head as she heard the wings, and gasped in astonishment as her friend touched down. "Rainbow Dash, oh my, whatever happened to you? You look absolutely terrible, dear." Rainbow Dash stopped and looked at herself, as if noticing her wounds for the first time. "That's what I'm here to tell you. Rarity, the other prisoner escaped, and I think she's after you. She bucked me into a pile of boxes in a storeroom, and they collapsed on me. I was knocked out, and now she's on the loose. Quickly, you've got to get somewhere safe." Rarity stood still, but the guards around her immediately formed up around close to the group, eyes peeled towards the skies. Her voice carried suspicion. "Rainbow Dash, how did the prisoner escape? And why were you there?" Never mind that. Is there someplace safe you can go? She could be watching us now." Rarity watched her hover frantically, but her experience with people told her that something else was going on there. "Rainbow Dash, I don't go anywhere unless you tell me the truth. Besides, I simply cannot leave this crowd waiting another prisoner. They'll start rioting if they aren't calmed down correctly." Rarity stomped her hooves stubbornly, but Applejack was already pushing her towards the carriage. Head plowing the resisting unicorn forward, Applejack's voice carried all the stubbornness she could muster. "Oh no you don't, Sugar Cube. I ain't gonna watch you risk your life for some more publicity out here. If that Shadow Bolt's on the loose, her target is either you or the surface." Pushing the disheveled mare into the cart, she smiled victoriously. "I'll stay here and talk 'em down. They all respect me nearly as much as you. You take Twy and Rainbow Dash to safety until this whole thing blows over." Rarity picked up herself from the floor of the carriage, prepared to respond, but before she could, however, Rainbow Dash and Twilight had jumped inside with her and shut the door. The carriage took off at breakneck speed, the town ponies diving out of the way to make room. Disheaved and displeasured by this turn of events, Rarity turned to Rainbow Dash. "Well, now that I have been quite embarrassed in front of every pony, would you kindly tell me how exactly the prisoner escaped while you just happened to be in the dungeons?" Look, Rarity, you're one of my oldest friends, but killing Spitfire was wrong." Rarity frowned, annoyed that this same topic was being brought up again. "I was going to set her free, so that she could escape from New Ponyville, but when I untied her, she bucked me and took off." Rarity sat silently thinking, her chin to her hoof. Finally, she spoke up. "Rainbow Dash, I should have you arrested for treason, but you saved my life once. Therefore, your punishment will be making sure we all get out of this alive." She glared at the Pegasus across from her. "But don't think this means we won't have a talk about this later." Twilight spoke up. "Rarity, this Shadowbolt is a Pegasus. We should be extra careful about this safe house. Are there any windows or anything we should be aware of?" Rarity gasped. "Oh, no, my dear. Applejack was in charge of building that dreary place, and she was quite insistent on that. There are no decorative windows or any other well-placed pieces of common decorative sense, much to my displeasure. There is, however, an escape tunnel up to the surface, just in case." Twilight sighed with relief. "Oh, thanks, Celestia. It sounds like we should be safe after all." The car rumbled to a stop, and the door was flung open by one of the guards. The three ponies rushed out of the car, and Twilight slowed down to look at their destination. She was disappointed, for all she could see was a heavy metal door in front of her. Rainbow Dash yanked it open, and they all prepared to enter the dark room. "Wait," said Twilight. "We shouldn't all go in. One of us should stay guard out here, and we can rotate in shifts. I volunteer to go first." "No, Twilight. Let me." Twilight could hear the same tone of stubbornness in Dash's voice as she had used with the food delivery. "It's my fault this is happening. Plus, the best defense against a Pegasus pony is another Pegasus." Twilight had to admit that this was a logical sense, but she'd also noticed the gleam in Rainbow Dash's eye. No doubt about it, she thought, she was looking to fight that pony, even if she has to wait here all night. "All right, Rainbow Dash, but I'm taking my fair share of the work this time. I'll be out to relieve you in half an hour." With that, the purple unicorn turned towards the door. Rarity shuffled her through. "Twilight, come inside, dear. Let's see what food I have stockpiled back here. No sense in going hungry while we wait for our guards to catch her, after all." The two ponies disappeared into the shelter, shutting the door behind them. The guards' ponies pulling the carriage turned and left, their abilities needed elsewhere. Rainbow Dash sat alone outside, eyes scanning the darkness half-heartedly. Soarin stood on the cloud, looking up to the sky. It hung empty and barren above him, as dark as the guilt weighing down upon him. The blackness seemed yellow through the tint of Spitfire's goggles, and he raised a green hoof in front of his face. So, this is what I looked like to her. This was the monster she saw in her last moments. He lowered his hoof and rolled over, the thin cloud wafting dangerously beneath him. This was how she saw the world. His tears leaked out the side of the goggles. It's no different from how we all saw it. He looked below him, towards the ground. It was lost to the darkness of day. Soarin stood in a cold void. Visually, it made as much sense for him to fall off, or up, or sideways, as it did to fall down. He contemplated falling forever, knowing that the pain inside of him would never be diminished. He prepared to roll off the cloud. but froze on the precipice. I can't do it. I've got to have something left to live for. There's always hope for a better future, isn't there? He laughed a bit to himself, but it was mirthless. Of course there is, he reasoned. There's always hope. But ponies like me, bad ponies, we don't deserve it. The best thing we can do to make the world brighter is to remove our own stain on it. In frustration, he slammed his hooves down. The already wavering cloud beneath him vanished completely, and he slowly began to fall. Turning around with care, he faced the void beneath him. It always looks so small from so high up, he mused. But I can't even see it now. I don't even get that last mercy. It's restless, restlessly dark, restlessly crushing. Maybe there's good down there somewhere, but you have to dig deep. The rushing wind whipped past his face, tearing the tears from his eyes in the shattered goggle lens. You have to dig far deeper than any pony can, than any pony wants to. You have to dig past all the blackness, the badness that you're capable of. And I can't do that. He purposely kept his eyes open as he plummeted, wanting to see what she saw. The ground looming up, his certain death reaching up towards him, and no pony left that could help. Rainbow Dash turned her head at the sound of yelling from behind the door. There was a loud bang, and she leapt to her hooves in surprise. The sound of a metal mechanism churning away was followed by the opening of the door, and an exasperated Twilight stomped outside. What happened? Dash's question was direct, but her voice held little surprise. That blasted foal! She still won't even begin to listen to any of my advice. Twilight sat down in a huff, crossing her hooves in front of her as she leaned against the wall. Even with the promise of the town's morale being restored, she refuses to consider a ration. Oh no, my dear, the ponies here have grown accustomed to this way of life. It would just be ever so cruel to take that away from them after such a joyous occasion. Her exaggerated mocking of rarity was cruel, but Twilight found that she cared very little for her friend's feelings at the moment. Joyous occasion. Rainbow Dash asked it as a question. She said that, huh? Can you believe it? Twilight shook her head, taking a deep breath to calm herself down. It's like she has no sense of herself anymore. All of her morals are gone. She only cares about making these ponies happy, even if only for a few days before they die from starvation. Maybe it's not so bad, defended Rainbow Dash. Maybe it's the mark of a good ruler to stop trying to be a good pony. Maybe giving this town what it needed was what she needed. No, returned Twilight. A good ruler would never have done this. A good ruler would have held them as hostages, maybe even tortured them for information if she had to. Twilight sighed again. But giving the people what they want is not always the best option. Hell, it probably never is. I'd bet that if you asked any pony in town whether they'd rather eat like kings tonight or live to see next week, they'd all give up a little comfort for the chance to make a new life. Maybe last week they wouldn't have cared, but now she turned her head back towards the town, where the noise of the crowd could still be heard. For better or worse, they've come back to life. Then Rarity must be proud of what she's done. Rainbow Dash seemed more thoughtful than perturbed at this point, like she was still making her own judgments. She is, and that's the worst part. Twilight put her head in her hooves, groaning into them, If she regretted her actions at all, showed even a little hesitation in her decisions, I might still be able to believe that there was some pony in there. But instead, Rainbow Dash. It's like I don't even know her. She's just a symbol of generosity. A pony that refuses to adapt to this world. Rainbow Dash sat and thought for a long time. But eventually she spoke again. So what do we do now? About her. About New Ponyville. Her face was as unreadable as she scanned the darkness looming above them. It sounds like you're more capable of ruling than she is. And what she did was murder. We both agree on that. If we don't call out for justice, I'm afraid no pony will. Twilight looked to the ground. Dash, what she did was wrong. But I can't lead these people. You and I are both different, from a different world. We'll never understand what they've been through. And they love Rarity too much to support anyone else that she didn't appoint on her own. She sighed, finally approaching the statement directly. And Dash, I don't know what justice we'd be appealing to. I can see why she made the decision she did, even if I don't support it. Killing them for killing them is no better than what she did. It's just more the same circle. She buried her head in her hooves again. I don't like it, Rainbow Dash. But eventually, someone is going to have to be strong enough to stop the circle. She looked directly at her friend, and Dash could see the traces of tears in her eyes. Some pony has to watch their friends die last, and not kill in return. I don't know if we can stop it, but we can certainly refuse to help continue it. Twilight looked desperately at Rainbow Dash, desperate for some support for her cause. She knew it wasn't going to be easy for her friend to swallow, but she didn't expect the explosion that followed. "What?" she yelled, leaping into the air. "You just let her crimes go unpunished? You let her walk free of that murder? You're no better than she is, Twilight." "No, Rainbow Dash. Please, listen." Twilight couldn't help but tear up. Since they had come here, she and Rainbow Dash had never fought. They were always in this mess together, as friends, and Twilight didn't want to ruin that now. I support what you did, with freeing the Shadow Bolt. She didn't deserve to die, and neither did the other one. Spitfire, Rainbow Dash corrected. Spitfire. And Rarity does deserve to answer for the same justice she claims to flaunt. But Rainbow Dash, what's more important? Justice or saving lives? It's hard to just let Rarity go like that. But if it saves even one pony, like Spitfire down the line, isn't it worth it? Rainbow Dash opened her mouth to reply, but sank back to the ground. Folding her wings, she sat back against the wall. I don't know, she finally admitted. It's hard to just let her go. I need to think about that. Her stomach grumbled as she looked down in surprise. Oh, wow. I don't even remember the last time I ate. Is there still food in there? Twilight smiled. Yeah, there's enough dried mushrooms to last weeks. But if you hurry, you might just get some stuff before Rarity's cooking before she eats the rest of it. Don't worry. It's about time for me to switch shifts with you anyway. Rainbow Dash nodded at her gratefully and hobbled over to the door, pushing it open. Twilight heard the small click as Rainbow Dash locked it behind her, sealing herself in with her inner quarrels.